Hi guys, this is my first layout after Christmas, and I wanted to scrapbook these pictures of the moon that Scott took. One was taken with his camera, and just the lens on his camera, and the other one was taken using our telescope as a lens for his camera. And so I wanted to just scrapbook the difference between the two photos. And so I'm using the Studio Calico 34th Street kit, and you're going to see me go through it looking for things that are relevant to space. And here I am discovering this piece of paper, and this is kind of funny because when I first saw this paper in the kit, I was kind of like, what the heck? Like, who? I would never use that, and I don't know. I mean, only a few people would ever have a reason to use constellation paper. It was a really nice color. I loved the color of it, but I was like, okay, I'm never going to use that. And then I got ended up with two kits, so I've got two pieces of this paper, which I just thought I'd use the backside to. And so little did I know that we'd get a telescope for Christmas, and I'd end up having a reason to use constellation paper. So yeah, and I totally forgot about the paper until I was going through it, and I had this like aha moment when I was looking through the paper, thinking, well, I've got to use that. So, anyways, while I was blabbering, I went through all of my Studio Calico paper and picked out some things that I thought would go well with the kickoff point for this one was, of course, that red constellation paper. So I wanted to mat these photos so that they're staggered because when you line up two pictures that are so black, it looks like one big giant picture. And that looks kind of weird because it looks like there's two moons in the sky. And so I staggered them on the black wood grain mat, which is a crepe paper. The constellation paper that I blabbered on about for so long is a Studio Calico paper. Also came in the kit. I think everything on this layout came in the kit. I'll point out anything that didn't. I took a piece of POW glitter paper because how can you not use glitter paper on a layout about astronomy? So at the beginning you saw me going through a bunch of the arrows. My main idea for this layout was that I wanted an arrow to go from the little moon to the big moon. And I thought about using that protractor just because it's sciencey, but I didn't have a use for it. So I like that little shipping tag that came in the kit, and so I stuck it behind the photo mat there. And then those are some library cards that I got from an Etsy shop. And I'm just going over to my Project Life area. Whenever you see me out of camera, I'm looking through my Project Life stuff and getting tags of different sizes and shapes. So yeah, bear with me. The inspiration for this layout was a Facebook post that Scott did on the night when he took these photos. He posted he posted the two photos and put like 105 millimeters on the small one, and then I think it's 1250 millimeters on the bigger one. So just to show the difference of the two, I mean, the telescope ends up being a giant zoom lens for his camera, and it was amazing. We were looking at the moon and you could see all the texture and the craters. It was just, I've never seen anything like that. I've never looked through a real telescope. I've only ever looked at toy telescopes. So yeah, it was pretty amazing. So I'm just layering all of those cards and stuff. Basically, I was looking for anything that was gonna pull in some red into the layout because I've got that big red piece on the background. And so I was mindful of just wanting to bring red into the layers of the layout so that it didn't look out of place. And then I also have that blue paper on the background as well, so I wanted to have a couple of blue elements as well. So that is a 7 Gypsy tag that I just cut apart to make it a different size. I wanted it smaller, so I cut it and layered it. And then I have a couple of Elle Studio and Avalicious things in there. And I don't know who makes the light bulb tag. It was in a rack from a YouTuber, so I can't remember what company it comes from. But I thought it was sciencey again, kind of like an idea. So I just showed you I'm using my Studio Calico roller date stamp, and I'm going to use the epic one because I don't know, the moon is kind of epic. And what I'm doing right now is I'm at my vintage typewriter and I'm typing on that library card, and you'll see it in a few minutes. I had to change the ribbon, so it took me a while, and you'll notice there's ink everywhere. It's so I put the author as Scott Oldford, that's my husband, and the title is Astrophotography for Beginners. We're definitely beginners. So I did snap a photo of how I had the layers all set up so that I could remember when I had to take it all apart so that I could outline everything. And I just have a little piece of scrap paper that I'm outlining on just so that I don't, if I go off the piece, I don't wreck what it is that I'm working on. I'm not outlining everything, but I'm outlining things that don't have nice sharp edges on them, or things that don't have good contrast between them and what they're and their background. And that just helps to pull all the elements together, because even though they're all different manufacturers and some of them are quite, shabby looking and some of them are quite clean and crisp looking, the outlining helps to bring all of those different elements together and not look too much like they're out of place. And as I layer them, I just layer them so that, like, I don't know any design principles or anything besides the basic ones that everybody knows, but I just kind of try to overlap everything so that there's no weird corners or edges or spaces and that sort of thing. But I don't really think about it too hard, to be honest with you. I just kind of put things together so that they look okay. And and sometimes I notice afterwards that I left a big gap somewhere or whatever, but you can always cover that up later or just live with it. So now that background, as much as perfect as it was for the layout, it was really, really red and white. Like it was very, what am I trying to say? It was very different from everything else in that it was only red and white. And I just wanted to bring some black into it. So I outlined a couple of times on there. I think I did a total of 3 different outlines on it just to bring some black into it. It's very subtle, but it makes me feel better. So sometimes I think I outline for the therapeutic purpose more than the design purpose. I'm not sure what to do right now, so I'll just outline. So now I'm just layering those. I'm just basically putting things back and gluing them down the way that I've had them all along. And yeah, that's kind of a cool little cluster. I'm really liking how that cluster is working out. It has a lot more white in it than what I usually use in a cluster. I usually like to bring things with lots of pattern and color together, but in this case, there's lots of big white spaces, which is good because I'm going to put a title there. Sorry about my head. um, so now at the last minute, I added another tag in there. It's just a plain manila shipping tag from my own stash. It's just from Staples. And I had to add some twine to it because it didn't come with any twine. And I'm going to use some craft washi tape that came in the kit. It's, I think it's by Queen and Company, Bella Boulevard. Can't remember. I'm tidying up a little bit. I don't know what I'm doing here. What am I trying to do? Oh yeah, so I'm just taking the little knobbies off of the arrow, the vellum arrow, because those irritate me. I don't like knobbies. And now I'm going to use my ATG to put that vellum arrow in place, even though you're going to see the glue, because I am going to staple it too. And I figured that the staples they're not going to totally cover the adhesive, but they're going to draw your attention away from the adhesive. And I just did my staple in the middle of the page technique that's probably 4 or 5 videos ago. In the middle of the video, I open this up. I'm sorry I can't give you a reference for how to do it, but it's in one of my most recent videos, probably October or November. So now I'm just writing down the different millimeters of those 2 photos so I don't forget, and I'm going to put them on with a label maker because those label makers always remind me of science. It seems like people would label their science labs with those labels or something. My dad always labeled things in his workshop with Dymo labels. And he was really into science. He wasn't a scientist. He was a carpenter, but he was really into science. Anyways, that doesn't matter. I just wanted to use Dymo Label Maker. And that one doesn't have a zero, which is the craziest thing in the world to me. It doesn't have a zero. So I have to use an O, a lowercase o, because you can't switch reels in between making a label. So on to the letter stickers. I am using a Studio Calico chipboard letter sticker font here. Um, And I think it might be called Alley, or am I mistaken? I don't think those have names, but for some reason I'm thinking they're Alley. I didn't have a C, so I just cut up a Q and made a big giant C, which I needed because the word was too long, so I had to nest my O within my C, so it worked out well. I'm trying to lay out my letters so that the T doesn't fully cover up the row of stars on the tag below it because I picked it because it had stars on it, so I didn't want to cover them up entirely. Those are basic gray chipboard letter stickers, the word just, and those are from a previous kit. And then these are Jilly Bean Soup cardstock letter stickers, and these are also from a previous kit, and they're in navy blue. There is a set of black ones that came with the kit this month, but I didn't want to use black because I was using the basic gray navy blue letters above them, so I wanted to stick with the navy blue. And now I'm just jostling those letters around a little bit so that they don't cover up my funny library book title that I created. It's funny because the idea of us writing a book on astrophotography is pretty crazy. Um, so there's my title, Just Add a Telescope. And as I mentioned, it's inspired by my husband's Facebook status, which is, this tiny one, just add a telescope, and you get this big giant moon. So now I'm finally committing and laying down that constellation paper. And it was looking just a little bit too stark. So I'm experimenting with this background stamp. I want to use it, but I don't want it to be rectangular. So I have just a piece of plain white cardstock that I'm experimenting with some black distress ink, and I'm wiping off the edges. I'm only inking the middle parts of it, and I'm wiping off the edges, and I'm just putting it kind of around in some of the open spaces that are going to show, and I'm stamping it off before I use it so that all of the ink on the layout is second or third or fourth generation ink. It's not fresh ink right off my ink pad. And then I splattered some Mr. Huey's, and now I'm just laying down some wood veneer stars. And I did not want to use black stickles with those because they would take forever to A, stickle, and B, dry. So I pulled out my glimmer mist from way back in the day when I used to use glimmer mist. And they were perfect because it colored them black and they have quite a nice shimmer to them. So I will keep that in mind for mass uh, coloring of wood veneers because I often cover my wood veneers in stickles. I've actually gotten more use out of my stickles since I've started using wood veneers than I ever have before. So I was very close to throwing away not throwing them away, but giving them away. So I'm glad I kept them because I use them a lot now. Just going to add that flare badge. That is a Studio Calico flare badge that came in the kit, and it has that shape of circles with lines in it. I forget what that's called. It might be called plano or plano, or maybe that's another shape that I'm getting mixed up, but it's that circle shape thing. And I thought it was appropriate. So I'm just trying to make those stars look random. Funny how much time we spend making things look random. I fuss and fuss and fuss with this, and yeah. So at some point I'm going to use my glossy accents to start gluing these down. My glossy accents was quite finicky today, and I had to change glue midway through, which is good. I prefer the zig. What is that stuff called? The mono multi? It's not zig, it's Tombow. Um, Anyway, so yeah, it looks like I'm done, but I'm not. I'm gonna go and put a few more stars on there. Or maybe a lot more stars on there. I hadn't decided at this point, so I thought I'll color a lot, and then if I don't use them, I'll just use them for something else. And I did end up, I have used them on my project life, so good to have leftover colored stars. So now I'm going to go way overboard, and I was kind of like, oh, at first I was going to use the stars kind of like splatter, so I was only putting them in the places where the splatter was, and then I thought, no, I should do something different than what I always do and make like a pattern paper out of these stars so that the background is completely covered in random stars. And I don't know, that's a pretty cool idea, I guess, but I didn't much care for the look of it. So here I am taking them all off and just leaving the ones that are already glued. And now I'm just going to go back and I guess I'm going to do like a halfway, a little bit more than what's on there, but not quite as much as I had on a minute ago. And I'm making sure to hang some of my stars off the edges because that makes your pattern look a lot more random. You know, you go through this painstaking process of making things look random. You don't want them to look contrived. Putting two really close together there again to make it look more random. And I'm going to go back with my I keep a pair of pliers that are for cutting wires. I keep them in my scrap room, and I'm going to use those to cut off the edges of those stars. There's the tool right there. So first I'm going to use my scissors to cut the overhanging paper. I guess I left a star off there. I had to add that one. And now I'm going to cut that overhanging paper. I'm a little mindful of the fact that I've got probably not dried stars on there. And then I just chopped off all the edges of those overhanging stars. And I think that's done. Nope, gonna put a couple of more things on it. Yep, gotta put some brads. So I had one shiny element, which was that flare badge that came in the kit. So I wanted to add two more shiny elements to my cluster just to put a bit of a triangle in the cluster. So I took that yellow and red brad that came in the kit. It's from the Dear Lizzie 5th and Frolic collection. Couldn't find another brad that I wanted on there, so I went into my stash and got my 9 to 5 brads, and lo and behold, there was a star brad there that was a star and it had blue in it, so that was perfect. So I think I'm done, and I think I'm going to show you the close-ups now. Just a second. What's the verdict here? Are we done or are we done? Yep, we're done. So there you get to see the close-up of how it looks with the splatter and the background stamp and the stars and my cluster of little tags. And you can see the adhesive on that vellum arrow, but because the staples are there, you don't really notice it. And then I'm just showing you a bit more detail of the layers and whatnot. So that's it. If you guys have any questions or comments, just feel free to leave me a comment below. And I have another one coming right up. I've got 3 in total that will be probably uploaded around the same time. So hope everybody's having a great holiday. Take care.